San Francisco, we have got a great show today because we are tying together two stories that could not be more different on the surface, but are equally fascinating as we barrel toward training camp season. First, we are going to dig into one of the strangest, most dramatic quarterback stories in college football history. A story that ended with a five-star transfer bolting for the NFL before playing a single snap for his new school. With gambling receipts, a Texas judge, an NCAA revolt, an attorney named Jeffrey Kessler, and a supplemental draft that has not produced a single player since 2019. We are talking about Brendan Sorsby, and the question is whether the San Francisco 49ers should throw their hat into the ring before the mid-July deadline. Then we are going to count down the top 5 players on this entire 49ers roster. The elite tier, the players whose presence alone makes San Francisco a championship contender every single year. The names whose absence changes the whole picture of who this team can be. This is the full package on 49ers Focus today. Let us get into it. Let us start with Brendan Sorsby, because honestly, you could write a 10-part documentary series about everything that happened to this young man over the last 3 months, and it would not feel like fiction. It would feel like the wildest sports story you have ever encountered. Here is the full picture, because the backstory matters enormously when evaluating whether any NFL team, including the 49ers, should spend a future draft pick to take a shot on this quarterback in the supplemental draft. Sorsby was one of the most electrifying quarterbacks in college football entering the 2026 season. He transferred to Texas Tech out of Cincinnati, where he had spent 2 years as a starter, bringing with him more than $4 million in nil money and enormous expectations for what he was going to do with the Big 12 champion Red Raiders, who had just made the college football playoff for the first time in 2025. He was coming off an all-Big 12 second-team selection in his final Cincinnati season and was widely considered one of the best available quarterbacks in the transfer portal. His career numbers in Lubbock were never going to happen, but in 35 career games, including 31 starts at Indiana and Cincinnati, Sorsby had already amassed 7,208 passing yards, 60 touchdowns through the air, 295 rushing yards, and 22 rushing touchdowns. The dual-threat ability was legitimate. The arm talent was legitimate. Multiple NFL draft analysts had him projected as a high first-round pick had he declared for the 2026 NFL Draft instead of transferring. Matt Miller of The Athletic went on record saying that before reports of the gambling situation surfaced. He had Sorsby ranked as the third-best quarterback in the entire 2027 draft class, behind only Arch Manning and Dante Moore. Think about what that means. This is not a marginal prospect. This is a quarterback who, absent everything that followed, was going to be a top 20 NFL draft selection. Then the NCAA opened an investigation that revealed Sorsby had placed more than 9,000 bets, totaling at least $90,000 on professional and college sports over 4 years while enrolled at Indiana, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech. That number is staggering. 9,000 bets. The NCAA's rules are clear. Any athlete who gambles on a sporting event involving their own school or athletic department faces permanent loss of collegiate eligibility. Sorsby admitted to placing at least 40 wagers on Indiana football while he was a redshirt freshman member of the Hoosiers program. That admission triggered the permanent ineligibility ruling. He checked into an inpatient rehab program for 35 days to address a clinically diagnosed gambling addiction, and then his legal team, led by prominent labor attorney Jeffrey Kessler, the man who has spent decades fighting the biggest institutional power structures in professional sports, went to court. On June 8th, a Lubbock County district judge named Ken Curry granted Sorsby a temporary injunction that would have allowed him to play for Texas Tech in 2026 while his broader legal challenge against the NSA proceeded through the courts. The judge ruled that Sorsby would suffer probable, imminent, and irreparable injury if he were not allowed to participate in athletics while his case was resolved. The backlash was swift, immediate, and overwhelming. Georgia and Nebraska both announced they would not schedule Texas Tech in any sport. Michigan canceled a volleyball match against the Red Raiders. 4 state attorneys general weighed in with competing legal threats. The Big 12 Conference filed its own complaint against the school and began discussions about potential sanctions, with its board of directors issuing a statement that included a sentence every person involved in college athletics needed to read: universities should not field players who have bet on their own team's games in college athletics. Texas Tech's Board of Regents chair Cody Campbell eventually released a statement confirming that Sorsby would not be part of the team this fall, calling the supplemental draft the only viable and fair path for Sorsby's future given the June 22nd NFL eligibility deadline and the impossibility of resolving all the pending legal disputes in time. And just like that, Sorsby withdrew his lawsuit against the NCAA, walked away from college football entirely, and applied for the NFL's supplemental draft, which is now expected to take place no later than July 16th, 7 days before the first training camps open. Now let us explain how this process actually works, because not everyone knows the mechanics of the supplemental draft, and the details matter a great deal for evaluating whether the 49ers should get involved. The supplemental draft is genuinely rare. The last player selected in one was safety Jalen Thompson, taken by the Arizona Cardinals with a 5th-round bid all the way back in 2019. The last time a second-round pick was used in a supplemental draft was Josh Gordon in 2012. The last first-round pick used was quarterback Dave Brown, taken by the New York Giants in 1992, and that turned out to be a disaster, with the pick they surrendered becoming the 9th overall selection in the 1993 draft. Each team submits a sealed bid indicating which future pick they are willing to sacrifice to acquire the player's rights. If your bid wins, you receive the player. You also forfeit that exact pick in the following year's regular draft. Multiple teams bidding the same round results in the tiebreaker going to the team with the better position in the upcoming supplemental draft order. The whole thing is completely blind. You never know what anyone else has offered, which means the decision is entirely about your own honest assessment of what the player is worth. Sorsby has a pro day scheduled for July 10th outside of Dallas at South Lake Carroll High School. The NFL must formally approve his application before any supplemental draft can occur, and there is a meaningful precedent that every 49ers fan should be aware of. When Terrell Pryor entered the supplemental draft in 2011 after being suspended by the NCAA at Ohio State, the NFL applied his college suspension to the start of his professional career. He missed the first 5 games of his rookie season with the Oakland Raiders. Commissioner Roger Goodell has that same power available to him with Sorsby, and multiple analysts have cited the prior precedent as the most likely framework for how Goodell handles this situation. The nature of Sorsby's violations, gambling on his own team while a student-athlete, is in direct conflict with the NFL's own personal conduct policy regarding gambling. The league has zero tolerance for gambling on NFL games, and while Sorsby's betting was confined to his college career and did not involve professional football, the question of whether he arrives as a clean slate or enters the league already on some form of conditional probation is genuinely important for how teams should value him. CBS Sports NFL draft analyst Ryan Wilson, who has watched extensive Sorsby film, was direct about what the tape shows: first-round talent. Wilson said before reports of the gambling situation surfaced, Sorsby would have been a high first-round selection. The physical profile is legitimate: 6'3", around 234 pounds, strong enough to take punishment, mobile enough to buy time and create with his legs. over 1,000 rushing yards and 22 touchdowns with his feet across his college career. A 61% completion rate at Cincinnati with 59 passing touchdowns. The mechanics have drawn mixed reviews, with scouts pointing to aggressive platform throwing ability as a strength and footwork inconsistency when he cannot reset his base as the primary technical concern. Comparisons to Baker Mayfield's gunslinger mentality and certain throwing mechanics reminiscent of Aaron Rodgers at his release point have come up. His comparables in the 2026 draft class fall somewhere in the Drew Allers, Cade Klubnik range, players who went in the 3rd and 4th rounds this April, which gives you a reasonable starting point for supplemental valuation. Should the 49ers bid? Here is the case for a low offer, and it is the honest analysis rather than pure speculation. Mac Jones is almost certainly a one-and-done situation in San Francisco. His future beyond this season is murky at best, which means the backup quarterback room behind Brock Purdy is going to need real answers by this time next year. Kyle Shanahan has demonstrated throughout his coaching career that he can develop quarterbacks who were not considered slam dunks coming out of college. The system works. The reps matter. And a developmental quarterback with genuine starting upside acquired for a 5th or 6th round pick in a blind auction would represent exactly the kind of low-cost, high-ceiling swing that good organizations take when the opportunity presents itself. The 2027 draft class is considered a banner quarterback class, meaning whatever pick the 49ers surrender in that round has somewhat elevated value, but a 5th or 6th round pick from a deep class is still a low-risk investment for a player who, at his best, was projected as a first-round talent. If the NFL gives Sorsby a genuinely clean bill of health with no conditioning or probationary status attached, John Lynch should put in a bid. Low, smart, calculated, the kind of dart throw that pays dividends if it lands and costs almost nothing if it does not. Now let us get into the second part of today's show, and this one is going to generate some strong opinions in the comments section because we are counting down the top 5 players on the entire San Francisco 49ers roster. These are the players who define what this team is. The reason San Francisco has been in championship conversations year after year. The names whose presence transforms this offense or this defense and whose absence changes everything about who the 49ers can be. Let us count it down. Number 5 is George Kittle, and honestly, ranking Kittle 5th on any list associated with this football team is one of the more emotionally complicated things you can do as a member of the faithful. For most of his career in San Francisco, Kittle would have been number 1 on this list without serious debate. He was the number 1 ranked player on this very roster last year before the season started. He earned a 98 overall rating in Madden NFL 2026, the highest among all tight ends in the game, and for good reason. His career numbers through 9 NFL seasons are historically exceptional. Only Travis Kelce has more receiving yards among tight ends since 2017. His 2024 season produced 78 receptions for 1,106 yards and 8 touchdowns. He is a dominant run blocker, a red zone nightmare, and the emotional heartbeat of this offensive unit in ways that do not show up anywhere in the stat sheet. The problem is 2025. Kittle dealt with a hamstring injury in Week 1 that cost him 5 games, an ankle issue in Week 16 forced another absence, and then in January, in the wild-card win over the Philadelphia Eagles, he tore his right Achilles tendon catching a 6-yard pass along the right sideline. A torn Achilles typically requires 9 to 12 months of recovery under normal circumstances. Kittle's surgeon described the specific nature of the tear as a best-case scenario. It occurred closer to the muscle attachment point than the heel, which theoretically allows for a more optimistic recovery timeline. Kittle himself told reporters he was not closing the door on a Week 1 return, that he expected to be back well before November, and that he was attacking this rehab the same way he attacks everything in his life, with complete, absolute refusal to accept limitations. Whether that timeline holds is the great unknown hanging over the 49ers' entire offensive identity heading into 2026. When he is on the field and healthy, Kittle is still a top 3 tight end in professional football. When he is not, this offense is fundamentally different. Number 4 is Nick Bosa. Coming off an ankle tear of his own in Week 3 last season, an injury that cut short what was shaping up to be another dominant year, Bosa enters 2026 as the most dangerous edge rusher in the NFC West and one of the best defensive players in the entire sport. He had a 97 overall PFF grade through his first 2 games of 2025 before going down, generating 10 pressures and 2 sacks in that limited sample. In the last 4 complete seasons he has played across, Bosa has accumulated 40 sacks, 110 quarterback hits, and 299 pressures. He earned the NFL Defensive Player of the Year award in 2022, was voted the 57th best player in the NFL's top 100 by his peers, and is approaching the prime years of a career that already looks like a future Hall of Fame consideration. His recovery from this ACL has been described by the 49ers medical staff as tracking ahead of schedule, with Bosa himself saying he plans on being ready and feels really good. A fully healthy, motivated Nick Bosa in his 7th professional season, playing for his next contract and fueled by the memory of watching the 2025 season disappear through no fault of his own, is one of the scariest propositions in professional football. Number 3 is Trent Williams. The argument that Trent Williams is the best offensive lineman in the history of professional football, or at absolute minimum the best of his generation, is not a homer take. It is just an honest evaluation of the evidence. His PIF grades have been the highest or near the highest at his position for years running. He has been selected to 11 Pro Bowls. He has earned 3 AP All-Pro selections. His run blocking creates running lanes that coaches draw up in their sleep, but rarely see executed at this level of precision in actual game conditions. His pass protection gives Brock Purdy the kind of time to operate that allows the entirety of Shanahan's layered concept tree to function as designed. He just signed an extension keeping him in San Francisco through at least 2 more seasons at 36 years old, and he is still playing at a level that makes him the best player at his position in the game. There are future Hall of Famers walking through that offensive line room every day that Trent Williams reports to work, and he is the best of all of them. Number 2 is Christian McCaffrey. The 2025 season was described in many quarters as a down year for McCaffrey, and the frustrating part is that a down year for Christian McCaffrey is still an exceptional year for virtually any other running back in professional football. He carried the offense essentially alone through extended stretches when Brock Purdy was managing his own health situation. He came within striking distance of 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards in the same season simultaneously. He was named the Offensive Player of the Year runner-up. He makes everything around him function more efficiently. The run game threatens enough to open the passing attack. The passing attack opens the play-action game. The play-action game creates the layered offensive design that Shanahan has spent his career perfecting. An available and engaged Christian McCaffrey is a chess piece that almost no other player in professional football can replicate, and the Niners' offense, with him healthy and at full speed, is among the 2 or 3 most dangerous attacks in the entire NFC. And number 1 is Fred Warner. How could it be anyone else? Warner was the best linebacker in professional football through the first 2 months of the 2025 season. He was building toward what looked like a legitimate Defensive Player of the Year campaign before ankle injuries cost him the back half of the year, and even in that limited sample, he was voted the 16th best player in the entire NFL by his peers on the top 100 list. His Madden 26 rating of 97 overall led all linebackers in the game by 3 full points over his nearest competition. Warner has recorded 115-plus tackles in every single one of his 7 professional seasons. one of only 2 players in the entire NFL to accomplish that feat since at least the year 2000. He has been a cornerstone of this defense since the day he arrived in San Francisco. The player around whom everything on that side of the ball is designed and structured, the player whose presence elevates every secondary piece around him and whose absence exposes every weakness the 49ers have in coverage and run defense simultaneously. The agonizing what-if from last January's playoff run, Warner coming so agonizingly close to returning for the divisional round against the Seahawks before ultimately being held out, a game the 49ers lost in a manner that left every member of the faithful wondering what might have been different, is going to live in this fan base for a long time. Fred Warner on that field against Seattle might have changed that game. That is the level of impact one player can have. And heading into 2026, fully healthy, fully motivated, reunited with Dre Greenlaw at linebacker and playing alongside a defensive front that is now legitimately formidable, Warner has every ingredient he needs to win the Defensive Player of the Year award he was building toward before injury intervened. He is the best player on this football team. He is the best linebacker in the National Football League. He deserves that #1 spot without apology or qualification. So there you have it, faithful, the full top 5. Fred Warner at the summit, Christian McCaffrey at 2, Trent Williams at 3, Nick Bosa at 4, George Kittle at 5. The elite core that has made this franchise one of the most consistently dangerous teams in football for the last half-decade, and potentially a new developmental piece arriving before training camp opens if John Lynch decides a 5th or 6th round pick in 2027, is a reasonable price for a talented quarterback who needs the right organization and the right system to develop him properly. Drop your takes in the comments right now. Who is ranked too high? Who is ranked too low? Should the 49ers put in a bid for Brendan Sorsby before the July 16th deadline, or does the off-field situation make it a pass regardless of the price? I want every opinion. Hit subscribe if you have not already. Smash that like button to show the algorithm that the faithful are locked in. And we will see you when training camp gets rolling. Go Niners!